morning and welcome to The Point. It is Tuesday, August 10th, 2021. Thank you to those of you joining us on the GBN, Grenada Broadcasting Network's Facebook page, the Grenada Broadcasting Network's YouTube channel, the website www.gbn.gd, GBN TV, channel 7, 11 and 20. Good morning to the listeners of Classic 105.5, 105.9, and the folks joining us on Party Grenada and Go to FET Facebook pages. Thank you for tuning in to The Point this morning. My virtual guest is Mr. Randal Robinson this morning, and this morning most of it will be talking about what I call jab defiance, but we're going to start with a conversation that I want to hear his thoughts on. So let's first say good morning to Mr. Robinson, and thank you for joining us, sir.
Good morning, Blossom. Good morning to all of your viewers and listeners wherever they are in the world. It seems to be Carnival Tuesday in Grenada.
I wouldn't doubt you at all. From the footage I've seen this morning, today is Carnival Tuesday. I'm just waiting for the fancy mass bands to take to the streets so that's what we're going to be talking about this morning, Mr. Robinson. But before we get to the official jab defiance, as I call it, I want to take us back to since last week, Wednesday.
Right.
It was about after 9 when I saw a notification that our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sean Charles, would make a statement at, I think it was 10:30 was the scheduled time. And
right.
Since then, to be honest, to me, it seemed as though from that statement, more carnival-like activities spurred since Wednesday night. So let's go back to your thoughts on the CMO's statement in relation to the activities we would participate in.
All right. So Blossom, first of all, why would you wake the nation up at 10:30 in the night? Most people, a lot of our people in their bed, this, that, and the other. So, probably children wake them up and say, hey, mommy, they have a dog sweat coming on. I think it's from the CMO, so we probably should wake up and hear what he has to say, right? 10:30, you come to the nation and say, we have a COVID case. And what is significant about this case is that the lady arrived here fully vaccinated, tested negative at the airport, was quarantined for 24 hours, and let out into the public, right? And so this is about 10 days afterwards, she's returning home, and of course has to do a PCR test to go back home. And the PCR test is positive. So, of course, that would occasion in the mind of anybody who's looking at this, an epidemiologist across the place, that it was possible that she became infected by somebody in the general population in Grenada, which is what I suspect prompted that, that call out to the nation. The timing, though, was very suspect. But I guess they might have been sufficiently panicked to not allow what was going to happen should Kirani run next morning and celebrations explode across the island. Should this have been a case of community spread, that somebody was able to infect this lady, then you wanted to be able to let people know in time so that they could do the necessaries the next day. Blossom, if you followed what happened under the social media, the posts under those social media platforms where that speech was aired, there was nothing positive, said. Probably for 99% of the posts, the comments under that live broadcast were negative. And people just seem not to trust the authorities anymore. I mean, I was sufficiently concerned by what he had to say because I came to the same conclusion, and I guess I understood where it is they were coming from. Since then, I have not heard the CMO come back to say to people, look, it might have been a false alarm. It could have been that she was infected. And let me tell you something. I had to traverse the airports over the last few weeks because I was traveling. And the airports can be very dangerous, COVID-wise. Because if you can get infected at an airport because there's so many touch points and all kinds of things, So if you have to travel, you really have to take extraordinary precautions. So, of course, I was masked up and had a shield and all of that. So it was very possible that even though she was vaccinated, because she was traveling, may have picked up the virus at the airport or while traveling, as the case might be. It is possible, and that it didn't manifest itself, at the first test because it was very early, and so by the time that she was going back, it would have manifested itself. There's this stiffly nose and so on, right? The stuffiness. So, okay, I suspect because she was getting a positive test, then she was not able to travel. But you have not heard that. Then you heard that she was in contact with somebody, I would say probably a relative in the house with her, whatever as the case might be, who was displaying the same symptoms, right? And then after that, we heard an innocuous thing, we have one other person with COVID and then another one and so on. Could you link the two and say, well, it was because of one and the other? You don't know. Now, a few days after that, we are what's the date? Today is the 10th. I believe when did we get this information? We got this information right before
last week Wednesday.
Last week Wednesday, which would be what date?
So tomorrow, please allow it will be a week.
Right, okay, so that's like the 4th, right? So the 3rd into the 4th. So in those days, has she been cleared since then? Has she traveled? Is the person who she may have infected, is that person cleared? I noticed as of yesterday, we had 11 active cases. 11 active cases. And the authorities tell us that all of those cases are imported. So what happened to that case that probably the lady who came in may have infected, who was in the same house with her? Was that an imported case? Has that case cleared? So these are questions that need to be answered.
Now that I think about it, I think they say import related. So maybe that's the difference. Not imported, import related. So I guess somebody who is in contact with somebody who came into the island then. I guess in the case of 170,
okay.
171. Import related.
Well, I think when I read the thing, it said imported, but you could be right. Well, if it is import related, then that would be a more accurate statement, right? So it means, therefore, that locals have been infected if it's import related, right? And I hope that everybody, so I really hope that the lady was infected, not by somebody on island, but actually, may have gotten it and it progressed on her and that it was only spread to somebody. I understand there were 51 people who were tested, contact tracing, and all of them came back negative. So I'm really hopeful, Blossom, really, really hopeful that they have caught that. Again, we seem to have dodged a bullet, but then I am not so sure. And I'm hoping that probably after the post-cabinet briefing and so on, these concerns that I have might be addressed. The other thing is that given what I have seen the authorities do, with these celebrations, jab celebrations all over the place and so on, it would appear that they have come to the conclusion that there is no real community spread, or no community spread. So they have allowed people to gather in this way. Because I cannot see that if they were really concerned that we may have community spread, there was no way that people would be allowed out on the street like that. So I am very hopeful that this is the situation. Of course, if it were the other way around, Blossom, I think within 2 weeks we will know whether we have community spread or not, because by then, these thousands of people who have gathered together without any social distancing, any masks, anything to protect themselves, it might manifest itself within that population. So,
but I
all
think
you people who like to pray, you better get down on your knees now and, harass the mercy seat.
I think your questions raise another concern by members of the public, because like you pointed out, the address from Dr. Charles came last week Wednesday. Tomorrow, God willing, would make it a week, and we have not had any more information in relation to these 12 current active cases that we have. Today is post-cabinet briefing, however, but the information from the GIS is that it will be facilitated by Senator Cox and Minister Oliver Joseph, so no health official there. So the question is, when do we get the answers? And then sometimes you send out the information and it's days before you actually explain. So these lack of information in between leaves people to speculate and, as the local parlance go, run them out. And that's a problem.
That's a serious problem. And I have complained about it from ever since. That I have always believed that there should be, we're still in the midst of this COVID crisis. And in the early days when we were having these infections coming up day after day, I always believed that there should have been a set time when people, at least twice a week that they come to the public, that you can look forward to them coming and telling, even if it's the same information or nothing has changed or whatever. That's the way that you talk to people and you give them information. Remember, there are a lot of people who are, for whatever reason, whether it be business or otherwise, need the information to plan, right? And they need to know the state of play, the health state of play, to be able to make the decisions that that would be best for them, including households. You have to know what is going on. So here it is, Blossom. We find ourselves in this situation. And here's where I want to segue into, let us look at what is happening now.
Yes.
Months ago, the Prime Minister would have come out early in the year and said, look, this thing ain't looking like it's going away anytime soon. We're canceling Carnival. And if you had to ask me, rightfully so. It is hard. It is difficult. It is difficult to make a decision like that.
Agreed.
Right? Especially since, a lot of our people, our little people, depend on the revenue and so on to be gained from those carnival, those months of carnival, from the time they start in April or May, with activities going up to August. Some people could make a good little living, they could turn their hand and see about themselves. So it is a very difficult thing. They didn't have it last year, and of course, and this year. But we have said that there is no... What was there to take the edge off the people? What? And then we see parties happen here, parties happen there. And then, of course, throw in the vaccines. You have to get your vaccines and so on. People are hesitant. They no longer want to hear anything from the politicians, it would appear. So the conspiracy theorists have taken over, misinformation all over the place, and Grenadians are buying it wholesale. And they don't want to listen to the authorities anymore. They don't find them to be credible. And I would hazard, Blossom, that we're really under a lot of stress. A lot of people are under a lot of stress. People have not worked for a long time. And remember, the informal sector took a huge blow. Bars have not been able to be opened, late into the evening and so on for a lot of months before. I mean, they got to ease up a few months ago. But before that, people who worked in, like let's say in the bars and so on, and places that open late at night, for probably a year it didn't work. Now, we understand that vaccines will keep us safe. But, Blossom, in the midst of it, masks kept us safe. Washing our hands regularly and sanitizing kept us safe. Social distancing kept us safe. Those things are still being used as mechanisms to keep us safe. Anywhere in the world you go. So those three, along with vaccinations are late to the party. Now, I have never contracted COVID. And let me tell you, for the last few months, I was in Trinidad. And so people weren't seeing me around and so on. But I was there in the belly of the beast. And I ended up having to be there for almost 5 months because I had to go and have some surgery done on my eyes. And I guess this is the first time publicly I'm speaking about it. So that was my situation. So I was there. What did I do? I wore my mask. I social distanced, and I sanitized. And I had to move around. I had to go to the supermarket and so on. Granted, I was on my own. But you had things that you had to do to survive. So you had to go to the supermarket to get things to eat and all that kind of thing. And then remember the lockdown came and there were no places open. All the restaurants are closed and so on. I am no big cook. So I had to find ways and means, you understand, to survive. So it meant, going into high-risk areas like the supermarkets, because then everybody has to go there because they have to have their meals and so on. And then the Supermarkets Association came out and said, look, we can't keep people safe. There's no guarantee that we could keep people safe, right? And so on. So what did I'm in my mask, I social distance, I made sure and sanitize. In Trinidad, there's no book for you to write your name down to say, like we do here in Grenada, write your name with your number and so on. That ain't happening. You sanitize and you go inside. So they will have a contact tracing nightmare should in case there's a breakout. And there were breakouts at different supermarkets. People who got ill. I never got it. I never got it because I was careful. And I came back home and I landed here. So I did my 7-day quarantine because I wasn't able to get my vaccines in Trinidad. So I had to, as soon as I came back, I said, well, I'll do it here. Plus, I land and I look out and I am seeing nobody is wearing a mask. Or if they're wearing a mask, it's a chin strap, right? While I was in Trinidad, I lost 4 people that I knew. 4 people I used to work with, Blossom. There's a friend of mine we used to sing together in the Lydian Singers. He survived. Barely. His sister died, his brother-in-law died. He didn't even know he was in ICU at the time when like all 3 of them got infected at the same time. So he now has to take care of his orphaned niece and nephew, right? So COVID is real and it kills people. You understand? And people need to get with the program. So I come over here and I see people wearing these chin straps and so on. And I'm like, y'all don't really understand what is taking place out here. So we have been lulled into this sort of false sense of security because we have been able to keep COVID at bay. Yeah? And, Grenadians, we fast. So anything we see out of the ordinary, we don't call the police. And that too has kept us safe. But Blossom, exactly what happened with that young lady who came in and did a 24-hour quarantine and found out that she might have been infected afterwards, going home. Could you imagine? When she went home, she got to get back out within a few days, within let's say a 10-day period. Could you imagine she was here for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, interacting all over the place and so on, may have gotten that infection. We let her out after 24 hours because she came back with a negative test and is fully vaccinated. You realize now we have to reconsider all the protocols that we have about this 24 and 48-hour quarantine for fully vaccinated people, because fully vaccinated people are also getting infected with COVID. right? So we may have dodged that bullet. So I believe that the authorities have to look at that again. We have to reconsider that in light of the overwhelming evidence that a lot of vaccinated people are still becoming infected, especially with this Delta variant. So we have that situation. Now let us look at what is happening on the ground now with our thousands of people who are outside there defying the authorities. Blossom, at some point in time, if people's frustrations, you don't find a way to be able to give people an opportunity to vent, there's going to be a problem. But it has to be managed. It has to be managed. If we had said, no carnival, and we did say, no carnival this year, no carnival-like activities, and stuck to it, we could have tried to find, little creative ways to be able to give people an avenue to do some things in a safe manner and so on, and keep promoting safety, being safe. Instead, we have now divided our people into vaccinated and unvaccinated, and the vaccinated could do everything that all of us used to be able to do, and the unvaccinated have to stay behind, and they are 80%. How you think the majority is going to be looking on and saying, well, look, I have problems with this vaccine because we only have one, we have no choice, I am hearing different things, I don't necessarily want to take it, I take a wait and see approach. And in the meantime, you can't walk, you can't fit, you can't this, you can't, everything is can't. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do the other. So what do you think is going to happen? There's this cauldron there, There's this cauldron of emotions and anger that's just building and building and building. And then you see, hey, we could have carnival-like activities for vaccinated people, and they throw a big show. And then another one. Blossom, here we are. Here we are. I have said it shouldn't have happened. And now that it has happened, there's no way that you're going to be able to stop people who want to go out and do craziness. And craziness is what is happening out there. And God forbid we have any community spread of COVID-19.
So do you think if there were no shows for vaccinated patrons, that there would have been less defiance by the jab?
I believe so. We've been looking at double standards happen over and over and over, Blossom. There are activities taking place in this country that you and I don't know about, but a lot of people know. And they're not necessarily even vaccinated events or whatever the case might be. In the same way that Trinidad has been experiencing these Zesa parties and all that kind of thing, that's happening here, right? It's happening here, and the small man who feels himself left out of these things and so on is starting to build resentment. Now the police are put in an impossible situation because the authorities are saying one thing and they're saying one thing and allowing other things to happen. So here is where we are. And I'm saying this is a consequence of double standards. This has not happened elsewhere. There's no carnival in Trinidad, there's no carnival. People had, if they had their little shows or whatever the case might be, it was streamed. You remember that? Kess and so did the things, they streamed it, right? So you could be home in your house and enjoy yourself. You think we could not have taken that on board and say, all right, so Talpri want to do a little show or specky or whatever, he could set up a backyard thing and we could help them because these are our artists. These are the people who represent us. So, set up a little set and you come out and you stream your little thing and so on. If people want to pay $1 or $2 or whatever online and think, or you just want to ease up, just free up the nation. So you could stay in your house and turn on your computer and have a little jam for an hour and so on, and people would have enjoyed themselves in a safe environment. We could have done that. We could have done that and helped our artists in the same way, Blossom. Now you recognize, as somebody who has judged soca, when many soca artists we have over 100, you know that?
Yeah, man.
right? 100 and something, probably close to 200 by now. So remember, these are people who now running into a little studio and so on. And a studio nowadays is any little room with a computer and so on and a mic and fellas just pumping out beats and things. And those songs out there, we have a whole set of music for 2021 and a set of jab music for 2021, all defiant. And happening day after day after day. I mean, it's amazing to hear. I went on just recently and, just go on YouTube and check for Grenada Soca 2021, song after song after song after song. We ain't miss anything. A lot of new artists that you haven't heard about. And so what I'm saying is that these are opportunities for these young people that are missed, right? In terms of earning, we could have helped these little virtual things and so on, give them a little blight. And all of this could have been organized by our carnival authorities. And so, managed, put together. Even if we created one little space and, an artist here, invite an artist this week and then the next week and the next week and so on. So we can look forward to that. And they get to express and people will be in their homes jumping up and so on. And, you make a nice little community thing out of it. Grenadians would have gotten involved, so it would have informed the conversation on the street. Boy, what you thought about that fella last night and that kind of thing. We could have done that, and that would have helped to ease the situation. Instead, Spice Mass Corporation, what happened this year? Nothing. We're paying people. Nothing. Right? Nothing. Blossom, we're not learning. We're not learning. We sit in, where are our creative minds? What are we supposed to do? So now we have a jab rebellion. It happened in 1974. I was a little boy, right? I was 11 when Gary come out and say, hey, no jab. Blossom, I was with my parents on top of Market Hill about 5 o'clock in the morning. Dawn was breaking. And I looked down into, the Market Square area, all those. It was dark. No, Blossom, I remember that like yesterday. And I was just seeing it like there was a carpet that was moving up and down like that. A carpet in the darkness. A carpet moving up and down. Humanity, Look, jab came from east, west, north, and south and descended on St. George's. And it was just that. And as it lightly realized it was people. Right? Them days now no DJ and things. So you know what is going on up there with the drums beating and the pans knocking and the clappers and all that kind of thing. That is what was going on. And that is what, and these things, and it brings back all of those memories. Now, the police have been able to contain people into places like Pearls and so, that was good. So they didn't interfere with the commercial centers. That
was going to be my next question. Your thoughts on how the police handled it? Because yesterday in Grenville on Paradise Bridge, I admit I was holding my breath a bit into how it can escalate. Yep. How do you think the police have handled it?
I think the police are caught between a rock and a hard place, but the police have to take decisions to protect the public good, while at the same time, the police spoke and they talk and they talk and they talk and they tried to they eventually got the crowd to move and to go into a safe space. And we didn't hear of any incidents of any violence, against the police or the police having to interfere with anybody there and so on. Because, you were there, so you would feel the tensions in the air and all of that. But at the end of the day, the jab turned and decided, okay, you know what? Let's live to fight another day. And went to Pearls. And so I have to give the police kudos now down here. I was in, leaving my house and going out the gate, and I saw police right by my gap. So I went to say, well, what's happening? Then somebody coming out there tell me, boy, they have jamming livery but it just turned out to be a few fellas playing and so on that I saw along the St. Paul's main road and things. So there were these little pockets of jab somewhere, and the police just kept them contained. And then when I went down to White Gun, I saw the police had barricades across the road. Actually, they're still there this morning on the side of the road. But if they managed to move down, because they know there's a big contingent that will come down from Richmond Hill and so on, they were going to block them by white gun, so they had to stay in that space and not get the opportunity to get into town. So the police, I have to give them kudos for the way they have managed the situation up to now. I don't know what is happening in Satés. I mean, I saw some of the things there. A lot of people congregating up there. I don't know what they're going to do today.
From the footage I'm seeing, I'm trying to determine in my mind which crowd was larger, yesterday's or today's, and I'm not too certain yet. So that should tell you the size of the crowd in Satés. And that brought to mind another question. In terms of the size, a lot of conversation has been, that means there are a lot of unemployed people in Grenada. And that is a major concern, because for all these people to be in the streets on a Monday and Tuesday morning, then that speaks to the unemployment rate in Grenada. But I feel like it's a mix between unemployed, self-employed. Of course, to me, almost half the crowd, children. But what are your what's your take on the numbers?
I looked at that. There are employed people who have taken time off to go and play jab too. I mean, people working in classic organizations who are part of the rebellion, right? So there is that. I hope they took leave. And I was looking at the demographic. So it's the young, right? A lot of young. You have middle-aged. We have, adults, right? And you have older people. I am seeing some people who seem to be like in their 50s, among the crowd. So it's across the board, Blossom, which is very telling. I mean, so we have heard all the political statements and so on, but of course, that is going to play out. The noise in the market is not a steal. So I just kind of dismiss these emotional outbursts and so on and things. So because whether that is going to affect what is going to happen at the polls later on, whenever that is going to happen, I don't think so. Right? That's just me. But it is instructive, though, that there is this level of defiance. And we have been looking on, and you have been seeing that the unions have had the issues and so. Yet, every time that they have called for a march, or they have called for, the wearing of a ribbon or whatever the case might be, few people showing up. Few. Even they have to admit that, their membership is not as militant as they used to be. But today, we see thousands of people just abandoning all good sense. If you had to ask me in the middle of this pandemic, and going outside there to thumb their nose at the authorities and say, hey, you all can say what you all want. Jab must play. And the culture will not be denied. This is us. This is who we are. And vaccinated or unvaccinated or whatever, you're all welcome to come and have a jump up. And this is where we are. How this is going to impact us going forward, given that we have gotten away with this. Now, remember, one thing might spur another thing and another thing and another thing. We can't expect that the authorities were going to be able to hold back thousands of people. If they decided that they really wanted to go into Grenville, it just wasn't going to happen. They weren't going to be able to stop them. If they really wanted to go, if the thousands gather and really decide that this is what we want to do, the authorities will have no chance. So I'm happy that at least the dialogue, that people are listening and that they're trying their best to avoid violent confrontations. There will be confrontations, but it didn't turn into violence or anything like that. And those who lead in the charge seem to be reasonable, and they took the I guess the safest route this time.
Let's take a break, Mr. Robinson, and then we're going to come back, continue the discussion. The phones have been ringing. A lot of people want to weigh in, but before we do that, let's pay some bills and come back inside with some more on To The Point here on Classic and GBN.
Grenada's chief medical officer has ordered that all confirmed positive COVID-19 individuals, their contacts, and members of their household must remain in quarantine or isolation for 14 days. Anyone who fails to comply with this order will be in breach of the Public Health COVID-19 Regulations 2020 and is guilty of an offense. Upon summary conviction, that person will be liable to a penalty of up to $10,000. A message from the Ministry of Health.
GBN Television News at 7, a pulse on all things Grenadian. Look out for our new features through expanded synergies with our media partners in Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Trinidad, and beyond. Capturing the latest in news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Credible, informative. Thank you for making us number one. News at 7, live, Monday to Friday on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11. K105.5 and 105.9, Hot 98.5 and 98.7, GBN Television Facebook page and YouTube channel, and www.gbn.gd. GBN, with you anywhere and everywhere.
There's no better way to start your day than with me on Good Morning Grenada. Covering everything you need to start your mornings off right. 6:35 a.m. on weekdays on all GBN platforms. Good Morning Grenada, adding a little blossom to your mornings.
Feel good facts. Remember, if you have flu symptoms, do the right thing and stay at home to avoid giving it to others. Remember, you can be infectious up to a week after developing symptoms, so rest up and take it easy.
Looking for that injection of vibes and energy, of course? Well, I've got just that. Hi, my name is Gary, Mr. Smooth, and I'm inviting you to join me on the Hot Morning Show on Hot 98.5, 98.7 FM. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 10 in the morning. I've got a healthy dose of your favorite and most infectious hits sampled with information, news, laughter, and all the other ingredients that go into making the hottest morning show on the radio. The Morning Heat. And while you're at it, don't forget to hit us up on WhatsApp, 435-7517. We've got topics, we've got discussions, calls, voice notes, and so much more. But I can't tell you everything. You gotta tune in. The Hot Morning Show on Hot FM 98.5, 98.7 with yours truly, Gary, Mr. Smooth. Kaboom!
Feel good facts. Help prevent cold and flu by washing your hands with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. That's the time it takes to remove most germs.
Welcome back to The Point. This morning we are speaking with Randal Robinson, and I've titled it Jab Defiance. At this point in the program, let's go to the viewers and listeners who may have comments, questions, queries, concerns. The landline has been ringing for some time, so let's go to our first caller. The landline number, by the way, 435-2041. That's also the WhatsApp number. Please, only written messages on WhatsApp. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Blossom, and morning, Brother Robinson. I'm glad that he said a number of things which I've said even on your areas on time to time, but nobody listens. One of the problems in Grenada that we don't listen to each other, so we don't learn. I agree with them. They're not learning. The other thing about it is that there's a crisis of leadership. I mean, since the COVID, even before COVID, I've been talking about the need to be inspired to do what is right. When I heard you talk about doing the sanitation and the mask and so on, the last contribution I made on your radio was that. We emphasizing our other vaccination, and we've seen what happened in people who were vaccinated still getting infected. The other thing about it, there's no sense of community right now. People on their own, they're dying on their own, so they want some sense of, commonness. And we do it. That's the way, the jab is one of the ways they find most creative. Unfortunately, again, I agree with them. There's lack of creativity. There's so many things we can do as a people. There are people around us who have the capacity. But again, I don't know, a crisis of leadership in which those influencers outside the formal system is unable to influence the masses. I don't know, I'm seeing danger. I dreamt about it years ago. It's coming on to us. I've talked about Lavantil coming into the violence, Lavantil and Mobile. It's coming. We're not doing anything. And I'm asking our people, let's step aside. Let's step back and look at what we're doing to ourselves. Now, if there was any gain in dealing with the corona, all of that's been evaporated with those activities we've been having lately. And the responsibility has to be left squarely on those who are allowed that. Also, again, I want to agree with Brother Robinson in terms of the police being ahead between a rock and a hard place. I said it also. We have put the police against the people. It's like when we had the briefcase inquiry, it wasn't about the allegation about the money, It was made as how the public service working. We've shifted the goalposts. People have to take responsibility.
Okay.
I understand. I mean, there's so much. I mean, it bleeds me when I see how we are we are going along a precipice.
Okay.
We need to stop our people from going down the precipice. There's lack of leadership, lack of inspiration. I don't understand. We're in a madhouse.
Thank you very much, caller. Sir Robinson?
Yes, it's all double standards, Blossom. It's all double standards. And, this vaccinated and unvaccinated thing has been bothersome. Let me say from the up front. I have had, since I've been back, I've had my first vaccine, and I made that public. And I stand squarely in the camp of people who should get vaccinated. I believe you should. However, I am going to respect the wish of those who are hesitant. And I do not think that we necessarily have to rush to vaccines because, as I said, wearing the mask, sanitizing, and social distancing have kept us safe. They can continue to keep us safe even in the workplace. I remember when restaurants opened, and so here, Blossom, after we started opening back up. And I remember going one day down to Umbrellas, and people were able to dine in and so on, but you had to wear a mask until you took it off only to eat or to have a drink, as the case might be. And it kept us safe. It's the same thing. If we go into a business place, we can wear our masks. The staff can wear their masks and talk to you. We have put up these plexiglass partitions and so on. There are things that we can do to keep the people safe while giving them an opportunity to take their time about deciding what it is they want to put in their bodies. No, I don't know what is a mad rush. I don't see it. I think people need to be convinced. What we need to do as the authorities is to keep the vaccines close to the people. So when they're ready for them, they will have access to them. That is all that I can say at this point in time, because we cannot ignore that there are 80% of Grenadians who are unvaccinated. At the same time, I will also urge my Grenadian brothers and sisters. More and more we hear about the Delta variant. more and more we are realizing that younger people are being affected by this. I was just reading a statistic this morning that there are over 500 children on a daily basis, children who are becoming infected by the Delta variant. We are also seeing deaths among young people with the Delta variant. Yes, and it is 60% more transmissible than the first one, the first iteration of what we will call the Alpha COVID-19, the first one that came out and that was affecting the place. Now the Delta variant has more or less taken over as 99% of infections. And it's only a matter of time before it gets here. Only a matter of time, because we're human and somebody might, a mistake might happen and we'll have to face it. And we have an opportunity now to have the vaccines and prepare yourself for any eventuality like that. However, we only have one, and not everybody could take the AstraZeneca, right? So I'm hoping that we could get choices for people so it makes them feel a little bit more comfortable. The Sinopharm is doing very well in Trinidad. You're seeing good reports coming back from that. We have very good relations with China. We could talk to them and see if we could get the Sinopharm vaccine. And there are others. Talk to the United States. If we could get some Pfizer, Moderna, whatever, other ones to come so that people have choices. That might help blossom. But we have to, explore all the avenues as much as possible. I'm saying let us keep the vaccines close to the people. But in the meantime, do not put extra stress on our people who are hesitant by threatening their jobs and livelihoods and all of that. Let us recalibrate our expectations with respect to the timelines. And let us encourage people to wear the mask, right? Sanitize and social distance in the meantime to keep yourself safe, because it works.
Let me go back to the landline. Good morning, caller.
Good morning. Good morning.
Morning.
Yeah. Mr. Robinson, as people are saying, and I would say as what you all usually say, you're making good points. But what I want to tell you, point is point. You don't know good points and bad points. Anyway, let me continue. No, what I look at, you talk about different things. What you telling people in a nutshell is to educate the people. Educate. So every time I talk about education, people believe it's reading ABC and this and that. And this is what hurting me. You educate people, then you'll be able to rule them if they're educated. In fact, and again too, we cannot use brute force to get people to obey. When we educate them, they would obey easily because they would understand right from wrong. If we look into this masquerading, we have a right to tell the people what is likely to occur. Don't cost them. I don't know what they mean in a cost, but don't cost them. Try to be lenient with them. Don't bulldoze yourself with them. Get them to understand what you're saying. Use different methods of getting them. In fact, as I've already said, go wrong into the country and with loudspeaker. For example, in the early days, as Blossom, I know she knows my voice. She don't really know me. I've really said already that you have to tell people right from wrong. You have to show them right from wrong. And Blossom will tell you every time I'm preaching that, but people only laughing at me and say I'm only talking about education. This is what we have to do.
Okay. Thank you very much, caller. Sir Robinson?
Yeah, I totally agree. We need to, I guess some of us, who people consider to be politicians, need to kind of move to the side and empower the professionals, the doctors, and so on. The same way we did with the constitution reform. You remember that? Go into the communities and so on and sit down and have the discussions with people. Send the doctors into the community, right? Talk to people who are in the medical field or whatever, could go and sit down and listen to the people and exchange, let them ask all the questions that they want and figure it out for themselves. Let's take time. Let's do the work. Let's go and meet the people where they are and encourage them to do what is in their best interest. I think being vaccinated is in the best interest for all. However, people need to be convinced that that is the right thing for them. They ought to be given some choices, and they need to feel comfortable. And the way to do that is probably for some of us who, as people, people will say, y'all are politicians. Move to the side. Let those who are not tainted in that way come to the fore and talk to the people. And I'm sure that will bear fruit.
There's a comment on the Facebook that says today would be the last Carnival, quote unquote, Tuesday. Today will be the last everything that will be done with at about 10 to 12 o'clock, and then we go back to normal. But do you think that this behavior would prolong? Because it started before, quote unquote, Carnival Monday and Tuesday. Do you think it would end today, or the defiance will continue?
I think it will taper off. But in terms of the defiant spirit of the people that has been awakened, I believe that it might now morph into other things. You see what is happening in Barbados and St. Vincent and North and Antigua about the vaccines? Now, that is going to be the next thing, right? Because people empowered. There are 80% of Grenadians who are not vaccinated, who are hesitant. There are others who are defiant. And now that this spirit of defiance has been awakened, you might find that the anti-vax movement or the anti-force movement and so on may pick up some kind of momentum here. I'm hoping that it doesn't, but that is the reality. One thing brings another thing, brings another thing, brings another thing. Yeah, and so we have to tread carefully now. We live in a powder keg, and there's no way that we should be giving off sparks at this point in time. And so every time we do something that is pushing the people back against the wall, Blossom, we send off another spark. We send off another spark, and we don't want that keg to blow up. We have seen what Grenadians are capable of. All of us should be students of history. And our history, while it is long and varied, it's also quite modern, And so we have seen upheavals within a lot of our lifetimes to tread very cautiously at a time like this.
A question on WhatsApp as we wrap up. Somebody asks Mr. Robinson if he looks at the rebellious nature exhibited, what he thinks is a solution for employment and the amount of young people out saying they don't have jobs. But with the need for food to feed the nation, farmers are saying they can't get workers. Do you have any suggestions to get some workers in the fields?
Well, Blossom, I've always said in the past that we have seen the debushers and so on. They're going to spend $14 million on debushing. That's what the government says. What do you think the impact of $14 million with the same people who are using to debush to go into farms and help farmers clear their lands and so on and prepare their lands for production? Do you think that is a better spend for $14 million? I believe that is what it is. I've always said we have had, the prisoners do this, that, and the other, and so on. They could be used to, the ones for hard labor and so on can be used in the clearing of our roads. Also, the other thing, and that's just the main roads, when we go into the villages and so Blossom, during the revolution time and before, people used to take pride in the front of their homes, right? When I cut my lawn and so on, I go on the road, in front of my house and I cut all the grass there too. Right, because I think that's my responsibility. I don't have to leave that for the bushers to come. So some of us have to take pride in our villages and in our surroundings and so on and get outside there and do those things. Now, I am not about to take bread out of anybody's mouth because I understand that the same people who are in the debushing program and so on need that little income, right? They need the income. But it would be a better spend if they are used to help the farmers because then we will be contributing towards the means of production and probably even helping to maintain, or to lower prices of fruit and vegetables. So that's what I would do. I think that is the better spend there, and try to work on the community spirit among people to come out, and if they keep the villages clean and so on, we could use the bushers in the farms, right? And then the prison population, those who, do the hard labor and so on and things on, you see cleaning the cemeteries and so on, they could be used to do the side of the main roads, right? And I think that can work. That can work. Unless somebody has a better idea. That's the way I'm seeing it.
Final thoughts as we close this morning, Mr. Robinson.
I just want to say, Blossom, to everybody, thank you very much for the opportunity, for the invitation this morning and so on. I am very hopeful that we do not have community spread of COVID-19. If we do it, and given these mass spreader events that we have just had and continue to have today, if that is so, then we will know within 2 weeks. We also need to be, we need to step back a little bit and take down the temperature in the country. Take it down. Let's take it down. Let's put people back to work safely, right? Let them put on their mask and social distance and so on until they are convinced that the vaccine is the best thing. Let's take it down and let's get people back to work. Let's do the things necessary to make Grenadians feel like Grenadians, like they belong, that all of us can enjoy all that Grenada has to offer, not the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. Let's stop dividing our people, right? Let's stop the division. Let's work together. Let's love up ourselves, love up each other. Well, doing this, but from a distance, the 6 feet, right? So we could put out a virtual hub. And so, yes, let's social distance a little bit. But let's treat our citizens the way our citizens ought to be treated, right? Give us a chance. Take down the temperature. Ease up the people a little bit. And let's do things to get the economy back on track. And it's not going to come back on track leaving people by the wayside. So those are my closing thoughts. And to all of you outside there, be safe, right? Be safe, folks. Be safe. The world is not the same. Things are a little rougher this time, but this too shall pass. This too shall pass. God bless you all.
And God bless you, Mr. Robinson. Thank you very much for being our guest this morning. Appreciate it, and appreciated hearing your thoughts on the situation. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday.
Thank you very much.
All right. Randal Robinson speaking this morning. I call it Jab Defiance. We thank him so very much for being our guest. And thank you, viewers and listeners, for tuning into To The Point. Always a pleasure. That's the end of the program and the end of my time for today. Joseph is up next with the mid-morning buzz. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everybody. And as Mr. Robinson said, stay safe.